Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deez, this is my workshop, and today I'm going to re-tackle the screw clamps that I made in a previous video. The screw clamps turned out okay. They're functional. That would be these two little guys here. They're functional, they're small, which is fine. I was going for small with the original design, but in the end I made some mistakes and there's some improvements to be made with these. So what I'd like to do today, and I mentioned it in the other screw clamp video, I'd like to make some thicker ones. I've got this stock that I cut out. It's a 1/2 inch thick piece of steel, 6 inches long. So if we divide that up, I believe we can do 1.5 inch wide clamps that are much thicker and more substantial. And in this video, we're just going to try to take these two pieces of steel and make something functional. I'm going to try to do a better job and get everything to line up better than I did with these. So bear with me. We're going to do a redo of these clamps, but a part 2 or a better version of them, and hopefully they turned out a lot better. So with that said, first thing we need to do, square this thing up, mill it down, and get this into a usable piece of stock that is square and true and ready to go. This time I've drawn out the plans. I'm trying to dabble in a little bit of CAD, or either FreeCAD. I've used both FreeCAD and Fusion 360. There's a steep learning curve to those programs, but I'll show you what I've got drawn up. And we're going to use, if you've seen in that last video, we're going to use this 1/2 inch piece of stock that I have, square stock, as well as this 12L14, and we're going to make screws for that project. So let's get you down here. I'll show you what we've got drawn up. We'll get a game plan, and we'll just get started with this new improved screw clamp design. As I said, I've been working with, these were made with Fusion 360, and I'm trying to teach myself CAD. It's got a big steep learning curve to learning that software, but it's pretty cool once you start figuring out some basics. These are very simple parts that I designed using Fusion 360, and it was really just a learning project so I could familiarize myself with the software. And so the first thing I did, these were the original clamps that I just made not long ago in another video. However, these were with 1/2 inch square mild steel that I drew these up instead of the 1/4 inch that I made the original ones out of. And I decided while I was drawing this up, I was going to use this square stock for that, and I decided to switch it up. But the original were 1.5 inch long, 1/2 inch square, be a little bit more substantial of screw clamps. I was going to make 4 of them, and I decided that I would go ahead and finish out this drawing, and I even drew up a screw for that. And I have 3 different drawings. One's the top, one's the bottom, and one is the screw. And I'll make these available if anybody wants these for their reference. They're not perfect. I may have missed a dimension or missed something, but I tried to. This is my first time doing any mechanical drawing or other than in high school, and so I'm still learning the whole process, what to do, how to do it. Maybe it's too busy, maybe there's too much information there, but this was the first set that I drew up, and I decided to redo it, and this time I'm going to make 3-inch screw clamps. I like this design better. This mimics the official ones you can get from Starrett or whoever a little bit more closely. So instead of a short nubby ramp on the nose, it's going to have a little gradual, it's a little bit more of a gradual ramp, you can see here. And I think I have these drawn out. I have the top. This is the top for the screw clamp. This will be the bottom. You can see the difference. Basically, it's a mirror, but again, you don't just say, okay, mirror. It's not quite that simple. Plus, the holes are opposite of each other, because one's a through hole and one's a threaded hole. But there's the top and bottom, and then, of course, the screw itself. 2-inch screw, 1/2 inch rod. I'm going to use this to make it, and I'm going to go ahead and make my own this time for those. So I'm kind of anxious to use my drawings to make this part and come up with maybe a better outcome. I'm going to insert a clip of the CAD program on the computer just to show you what I've drawn out. It's pretty cool because you can get the 3D design and rotate it and see what it's going to look like and represent before you even get started. Let me insert that clip in here, and then we'll get on to machining the parts to make up the 3-inch screw clamp. Well, I wanted to show you what I've done in Fusion 360. These are the most basic components you can really create, but I'm got to start somewhere, and this is a steep learning curve with how to use this product. You know, I'm sure I'm not doing it right because I'm just trying to figure it out on my own, but I did manage to muster up something that resembles some useful information, at least to me. So here's what we have. This is the 1.5-inch version, but I'm going to start working on a 3-inch version next, but I already had the 1.5-inch version built, so I modified it to create my drawings. But if we look here, you can see what's really cool is you can model up this stuff, and those of you that already use this stuff know that, but you can really get a good idea of what things are going to look like and how they're going to function. I think there's simulation modes and things like that that you can do, but I'm not
to that point yet. I'm just trying to design some basic components. So this one here we're not going to use. Here's the 3-inch version of my screw clamp. This is the bottom. You can see my threaded hole and through hole, and I'm able to play around with different angles and just see how it looks. And then we have the top. So there's the top, and the reason I drew them separately is doing a drawing. I'll show you here shortly. There's the top, 3-inch, again opposite for the screws so that you can clamp. And then I also drew up a few basic screws, you know, big deal, right? But you know, why not? Trying to figure all this out. And then you're able to create drawings off of those. So here's the bottom drawing, and what you do is you import that in here, and you're able to then get out your dimensions. And this is really what I was after. And once you have your drawing created, you put your components in here and you can measure all the different areas that you want. Now this does look a little busy. I'm no professional, so perhaps I got a little too much information in here, but for me this is gonna paint a picture that I need in order to create this part. So this is the bottom here, and you can see I couldn't possibly put all these dimensions on the top, bottom, and screw on one sheet of one drawing. So this is the avenue I went. Here is the top, and you know, you can print this out. And finally, here's the screw. So it's useful information. I can modify this and tweak it as needed. These might not be perfect, but I'm going to make these available to anybody that wants them. I'll probably put a link in the description to some PDFs of the drawing. Again, they're not perfect. They're, you know, I don't, you know, pay attention when you're making these parts. Don't take it as gospel. I'm getting ready to make it myself, and if there's some issues, I'll tweak them before I post these out there. But for the most part, these should be ready to go. So with that, let's get on with the project. I just wanted to share some of the cool stuff you can do with Fusion 360 and CAD programs. Lot of cool stuff, big learning curve, but pretty neat.
We're going to cut this in half to start. I've kind of got a game plan on how I'm going to attack this. I'm going to stack these in the mill vise, and we're going to drill the smaller diameter hole that will be threaded, tapped on all 4 holes to start with. And we'll come back later and we'll remount the holes, drill them larger to be a slip fit through hole for the screws once we get them going. That way I can be assured that my 2 pieces are going to be completely aligned this time instead of off like the last set that I made. So that's my plan of attack. First thing I need to do is cut this piece in half. Okay, we've got both pieces in there. I want these to be loose because I want to be able to move these around in order to, when I drill my holes, I'm going to shift where they are. But otherwise, we're ready to mill off the side and then get our 2 holes drilled. Okay, we got that shored up and parallel, both pieces. Now it's time to reposition everything and set up our drill chuck so we can drill the 2 holes. We're going to figure out what tap or drill we're going to do so that we can tap everything properly. And next thing we're going to do is drill those holes. We're going to use the edge finder to find the edge on this side, and then we're going to use my drawing, and we're going to come over and use a center drill to mark so that we can then do our 1/4 inch hole. And then we'll reposition everything, put the edge finder back in, we'll find the opposite edge, and we'll repeat and come in our distance that's on the drawing. I may adjust this back side. It's only going to leave 1/8 of an inch on the back side here when I drill my 1/4 inch hole, and then it will actually be larger than that, 332 thou for through. For the screw to go through, that's a 5/16 18 thread. So I'm still thinking about that. I may actually bring this in 300 thou or 400 thou. I'm not sure. I might want to give a little bit more meat on the back of that for stability. But again, 1/8 of an inch for what this is, I don't know that that needs to be super thick anyway. But one side's going to be threaded, so I think I'm going to rethink that. I'll probably adjust my drawing for that, but I'm going to bring that back screw in probably farther than 1/4, as you can see on these plans. So I will update these before I post them and put them on the site, but I don't like how thin that side is. However, we can get started on this side, and that is 1.5 inches in from the edge that we just found, and we got the DRO set at 0. And so now we're going to bring it over to 1.5 inches. And the edge finder is a 200 thou edge finder. So I think in order to get the center point, I need to add an additional 100 thou. So what we're going to do is bring this over 1.5 inches, add 100 thou, and then use my new Mitutoyo caliper, and we're going to make sure that is 1.5 inches. That is 1.5 inches according to the DRO. It should be 100 thou less. Should be 1.4 inches. So let's see what the caliper says. So if we bring it out to 1.5 inches, which would be about there, you can see that I'm about 100 thou out. I'm glad I paid attention to that. All of this is about learning on this channel. That's what I'm doing. I'm continually learning. So those edge finders, you have to add the 100 thou. So I need to add 100 thou. And again, that should be 1.5 inches over. And it most certainly is. I'm going to zero out the x-axis here. The other thing I need to do is center across the y-axis. I didn't do that with the edge finder. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in the x-axis while I have that set. We'll reshift all this, and then we can bring everything back. I just want to support the bottoms of these in case, I don't think they will, but in case these were to slip at all, these two parallels should keep them from moving any further than that. But I don't want to damage my parallels, so that's what we're doing here. did manage to make it through here. These two holes are parallel. So we're going to do the same thing. I decided that I'm going to come in, I believe, 400 thou. We're going to kind of visualize it before we drill the hole. But instead of 250 thou, I just don't think there's going to be enough. I don't like the 1/8 inch amount of material that's going to be left on the back side of this. I want a little bit more back there. So I think I'm just going to come in, I'll call it 400 thou. Now we're back on to, this is 200 thou, the shaft. So I'm going to have to come in 400 but add 100 thou in order to get my 400 thou. So let's find the edge. Right now we're centered on the y-axis, but now we need to find the edge on the x-axis. So I need to come in 500 thou. The two parts as milled are drilled out. So I think I'm going to switch up and I'm going to mark these top and bottom and just start focusing and concentrating on that and work on these one at a time. There's a bit of a burr on that one. It goes like that. Okay, we have our parts labeled top, bottom. I kind of have a rough idea of where the angles will be to just keep my mind oriented as I'm working through these parts. And I think what I want to do next is drill or go ahead and tap and then drill out the opposite screw hole to be a slip fit for the 5/16 18. So I'm going to set both of these up individually this time and work on those two operations, and that'll be it. So we're going to do the top and then the bottom. So the top will have the threaded hole towards the front, and the bottom will have the threaded hole on the back side. Well, I decided to go in and use Fusion 360 CAD to do some measurements here. And again, I'm trying to take my time on this one because I want it to turn out a lot better than the last ones that I made. And this is the top piece that I designated to be the top. And I've already started messing up. I didn't screw anything up, but I already wasn't paying attention. It wouldn't have mattered because this is a parallel part that can either the top or the bottom can be the top or the bottom. I wouldn't have messed it up. However, I'm not paying attention. This part of the learning journey for me is reading drawings and just doing better quality work.
Most of this is for having fun in the garage, but I do want to learn and try to improve where I can. So I went back in and I decided to update my drawing, number one, because I brought in the whole 400 thou to the center line on the back side. And I wanted to use CAD to measure. So I have distance between centers is 1.1. A lot easier to use this than trying to do math and DRO, and because my only measurement I had before was from the back side in. So this is going to help. Since I have this hole centered, I know where this is. I used the edge finder. No harm done. Since this is the top piece, I do want to thread this backside hole. So I need to come over, now that I know the center, I'm going to mark my X0. So actually this will be 0 for this hole, and then I'm going to come over 1.1, and that should be the center of that hole. So then so we're going to tap this one for the top, and then we'll tap this one for the bottom. There we go. Someday I really want to get better tap wrenches, a better tap wrench anyway. We all know where this one came from, but it's what I got. A little that lubrication in there. Lock that in. We're going to switch it up. I don't trust this tap. It's really getting tight, and I'm going to snap that tap off. So we are going to use one that was gifted to the channel. Thank you. And start here over. I'm trying to be a little smarter here with these taps. The other thing about them that I don't like is the Hobo Freight ones do not have, I guess I don't want to do that. They don't have a hole for the follower. I just going to not use this one. I don't trust it. I'm going to end up causing an issue. Let's be smart. Take it slow. Set this one aside. So again, 5/16, 18. Let's set this one up. Try again. Well, I can tell you right now, that is so much better. Just if you're starting out, I know many of you will comment and tell me all about this. There's so much science to taps and dies and all that stuff. And this has been a theme of the channel, is this dumb Harbor Freight Pittsburgh tool tap and die set. And I'm stupid enough to continue to use them. This is a Pittsburgh Harbor Freight. The difference, you can't see it on camera, but when you're turning this thing, you can feel this thing twisting and flexing. I've done it, and trust me, I've snapped one of these so many times now. I know what's going to happen already. It's really close to time to just trashing all those. It's just to avoid the temptation of using them. Now that I have a decent set of other taps, you know, I might just do that, but it's difficult to find a tap only set. I don't need dies. So that's why I haven't thrown them away yet, but I just wanted to comment on that. This tap here is cutting. It's doing what it's supposed to do. There's just no comparison to what this one's doing. Be careful when you're working with these things. If you feel that thing flexing or moving, just kind of back off and regroup, because you're going to snap a tap. Good luck getting that thing out. I haven't had much luck. I went ahead and took the opportunity to chamfer the bottom of this hole since everything was lined up and I have my stop. Might as well think, I'm trying to think a little smarter. So that hole's complete. And again, it goes through just nicely. And this one threads in nicely. I will chamfer this hole as well. There's the bottom, and here is the top. Now, though, those are fitting a lot better. I had burrs on them still, so I got that cleaned up. There we go. So this top will slide through. Again, these are, I want to make my own screws. We're going to do that, but I'm just using these as a test for test fitting. There we go. That's better. For the most part, everything's lining up just right. So these are turning out a lot better. I'm a lot happier with these. Like I was saying earlier, I think I'm going to take a wire wheel and leave the, I'll clean off the mill scale, but I'm going to just clean them up and leave the outsides rough. I kind of like the look of that. I do want to clean up the ends so that they are smooth after I do my angles, but I'm waiting until the end. Somebody told me, a friend told me, he said, you know, get your dimensions and all the critical components done before you start working on your profiling. And that makes a lot of sense, really. The next thing, what I was going to say, I got the burrs cleaned off, but now I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I think I might move on to the screws just for a change of pace. We're gonna try knurling again. So we got this knurler. This is a squeeze clamp kind, which I thought would be better. Maybe it's better, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but look, the flop in this doesn't really yield very good results. We go. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna get you down here closer so you can see that. Those diamonds look really good. Those diamonds turned out pretty good. I just took my time with the squeeze clamp here, knurler. Used lots of lubricant. And I only need 3/8 of an inch or so, but just want to make sure I had plenty to work with. I think I might knock them down. I don't know, we'll see. But I know there's a cool technique where you just skim the top of these and it just leaves a nice finish so that it's not so rough on the fingers. But that turned out pretty good. All right. I think what I'm going to do is just flip this rod over and repeat. And that will be both ends, you know, then we'll work with our 2-inch screws. But yeah, that turned out pretty good. That looks good too. Nice. Glad those turned out. I'm going to get this cleaned up and then we'll get ready to turn down the rest of the pieces. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that exactly. Because I don't want to grip onto the knurl. So I'll do some thinking here. Maybe knurl should have been last, but then I would have been gripping onto the threads. That's bad too. Let me do some thinking. We'll get you set up for the next operation. In my haste, I've been talking about trying to do everything right and in the right order and proper, and I just got excited to do knurling. Well, I didn't stop and think and measure, and I remember now, this was 600 thou rod, 594. It's not 1/2 inch like I have in my drawing. However, there's one other problem that's a bigger problem in my opinion, is order of operations. I thought, well, I'll just do this because I don't want to clamp on threads, and you know, how do you complete your piece when you won't have much to grip on? Well, what I probably should have done was knurl last, put in my workpiece in the lathe, turn down the shaft, and then threaded it for the proper thread, 5/16 18, and then went back in, used a collet to mount on the threads, and knurled that way. But I didn't. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave it. These are going to be oversized thumb screws. I may drill a hole in them as well so I can crank down on them if I need to or they get stuck. But that's something we can always work on later. And instead of 2 inches, I still think these are a better design overall. I'm not gonna modify that. But I am going to cut this in half. So these are gonna be 3-inch screws. But I wanna give you a little close up here. The knurl did turn out very nice. Both ends. So, I like it. Here's our top and bottom. We still got some milling operations to do on that, but we're making some progress. Things are coming along. So let's get this cut in half. We'll just mark it. It happens to be a 6-inch piece. We use the bandsaw, and what I'm going to end up doing, right or wrong, we're going to give it a shot. We can always work on redoing it if we need to. I'm going to use a 5/8 collet, and that's how I'm going to mount that into the lathe again, so I can work on the threading operation with the die. All right, we know this is not ideal, but we're going with it. See how this turns out. We can always remake these parts, but I want to see how this works out. But I am learning things. I know order of operations and all that, so I know that I need to do it differently next time. Well, everybody, today is the next day, and I stopped what I was doing. I put a caption in the screen here, so you don't need to go and chastise me on the comment sections just yet. I realized I was taking janky to a whole nother level with that setup. I'm including all of that because part of this channel is showing someone who is learning how to not take shortcuts, stop and thinking before you work with your operations and your different projects. That's what this channel is all about, my learning journey, and I'm sharing that with you. So I don't want to cut that out, but I do want to notate it and let everybody know I have since learned and I saw, okay, this isn't going to work. This is a bad setup. Let me stop. Let me sleep on it. Let me think about what I'm doing and try to complete this with as little as part movements or part adjustments, setups as possible. It can be done. You just got to think about what you're doing. I'm not an expert in this. I'm just an amateur, and so I'm learning along the way. But I've thought about it, and I have an idea of how to approach this in a much safer and a much more productive and a productive way that should come out with a good outcome that I'm looking for in the first place. So with that said, I'm going to get a new piece of raw stock that's actually about a 1/2 inch thick instead of that 3/4. Well, it wasn't quite 3/4, but it was just not the right piece of material. So no harm done. I got plenty of stock for that kind of stuff. It's just what's more important to me is learning from that mistake and doing it right. So let's get you set up here, and I'll bring you along for the ride. You'll see how I'm going to approach it this time and make those 2 screws, I think, in a much more appropriate way. All right. So the first mistake I made was knurling in the first place before I did everything else. And again, I get in my haste and getting lazy, I'm not using the tailstock like I should be, and that's another big problem of mine. So So now that it's a new day, I slept on it. I'm feeling a little better about the project again. Let's use this material. Which side here? Doesn't matter. We'll start with this side. And I am going to change something up on the original drawing. I want to make them 3-inch screws instead of 2-inch. I was comparing with the actual clamps themselves, and I think 3 inches will give me more travel that I'm looking for rather than 2 inches. So that's what we're going to go with. Now, here's my idea. First, we're going to bring this out, you know, so I have plenty of room to complete all the operations, including the knurling, and then we'll part this thing off. But before we do that, let's slide this guy in here, and let's center drill this. Then we'll use our tailstock like we're supposed to, and we'll be able to stabilize this piece and come out with hopefully a good outcome. So that's the first thing here. Let's bring it in here so we can actually center drill that and get a better outcome. I'm going to stop talking here. Everything's going to be self-explanatory, and we'll knock these two things out, and we'll bring you over to the bench, and we'll make sure everything's looking good so far. All right, I'm going to stop for today. We've got some family things to do, but I did redo it. So the first knurl didn't turn out as well on this, but the second one did. That's what I was going for. Maybe I probably won't. I'll probably just leave it well enough alone. I don't want to damage my threads, but there is what I was going for. Did make a change on the length of the threaded portion so that we had more travel for our clamps. But I abandoned this whole idea. I wasn't doing it right. And I think you'll see from that video that I really paid attention to order of operations, trying to move the workpiece as minimally as possible. And I finally decided to quit being so darn lazy. And I used my tailstock to support this thing so that we could actually come up with a proper threaded thumb screw. So this one turned out a lot nicer with the knurling. I think I could improve this. I might if I chuck this up in a collet, but I don't intend on doing that right now. So let's do a quick test fit before I head inside. We got some family things going on, and make sure it's going to work. You can always cut down material, but you can't add it back on. There we go. A couple screws. And if with any luck, they will actually slide. Should anyway. I think one of these I probably need to file down a little bit more. One of them was a little tight, but there we go. So there's the beginnings of our in my opinion, much better designed, and my approach and my quality of work, I guess that's what I'm saying, it's coming out a whole lot better. All right, so these are just real close. I want it tight. I want a good, nice, tight fit, but it'll probably clean itself up in time. But there we go. So I'm going to stop here, but again, I do need to clean up the little teats off of these things and cut my chamfers in here, and then either I'm going to lap it or use a face mill to clean up the rest of the sides. Again, I still do like the mill scale look of this. I may leave that. I probably will, because I just like it. But there we go. We're making some good progress. I could always take off some of these, but I like the travel here. And we've got at least almost we got 2 inches of usable travel. I would say at a minimum or at a maximum on these, if I need to have 2 inches. Right there's right at 2 inches. I can go a little more. So that's pretty cool. I think these are going to work out really nicely. Another modification I could do is drill a through hole into each of these knurls, and that would allow me to put in a rod or something and really crank down if I needed to, but I don't want to do that right away. All right. It's looking pretty good. It's a good stopping point for today. Well, everybody, I was editing this video and realized this thing is really long. It's over an hour long already. I'm going to close this video. We're going to make this a 2-part series. Seems like a silly thing for such a small clamp. But these videos that I do are about more than just making small projects. It's about sharing my learning journey. It's about sharing my experience in the garage, sharing the mistakes that I make in order of operations, and then the successes that I have as I learn through the projects. So I'm including it all. And I hope most of you enjoy that. And that's the formats that I like to provide. So I'm going to cut the video here. This is going to be part 1 of the 3-inch screw clamp. These things, it's turning out a lot better. It's turning out like I want. When I make a mistake, I'm stopping and starting over and doing it properly, and things are coming along. I've still got plenty of work to do to make a part 2, so it's not just a 5-minute video. We need to chamfer the front and the top and the bottom, we need to clean up the screws, the top of the screws. We may hot glue this, likely. I'm going to either lap or I'm going to fly cut the faces, and then we'll complete the project. So we have lots of stuff still to do, but I'm going to stop the video here. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and I hope to see you on the next one.